friends, I want to start from an emotional place. I just took the train into the city this morning, and it suddenly occurred to me, just looking around at all of us, and there were a lot of people on the train in different stages of mask, not mask, comfort, not comfort. We were all making our way, and it was such an important part of the journey today, that just noticing people, that was significant. It was obviously very different from being in the sanctuary on Rosh Hashanah and then this last Shabbat for Shabbat Shuvah, and yet it felt similar. There were people right next to me, and I'm so grateful that there were, and I was right next to them, and it's a significant feeling, isn't it, to be near people again. And I know that at some point we'll become used to this, but it isn't something I think we should take for granted ever, certainly not take for granted today. And when we return to services tomorrow afternoon and evening for Yom Kippur, I hope that we will allow the emotionality of proximity to touch us, the gift that it is to be near people safely and wisely, but never to take for granted the blessing of just being with another human being. I was honored to officiate at a wedding yesterday, and it was a strangely timed one between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. There's actually no law precluding it, and I just looked at the people who were there, and I acknowledged, it's a strange thing to do under the chuppah, but with this very sweet couple, how glorious it is just to find each other again after everything that we've been through. So I wanted to use this as a way of mentioning something very important about Yom Kippur. And for today and tomorrow morning, we will be learning about Yom Kippur. As I'm, not consumed, but so enmeshed in all this emotionality, the radical gratitude of being alive and being with people, it made me remember a famous Jewish character whose Yom Kippur experience changed the course of Jewish history. So there's a philosopher named Franz Rosenzweig. Many of us know his name and not much more. If you've ever tried to learn his magnum opus, his incredible book, The Star of Redemption, it's very hard. But his philosophy and his reverence for learning was incredible. He founded the Lehrhaus, the original adult education network out of Frankfurt and Berlin, that really transformed Jewish learning as something accessible and important and available to large groups of Jews in a traditional and academic way, meaning it wasn't the ultra-Orthodox world of a yeshiva where only a few would choose to go, and it also wasn't the heavily scholarly academic study in the academy where just some people could go, and in fact that wasn't necessarily about the Jewish heart, a human heart. He was an integrated human being and had a lot to say about learning. But his Jewishness was in question for him. He grew up in Germany, and he considered himself a Christianized human being, but he had never converted out of Judaism. And he was born a Jew, and he knew enough history to know that his sort of wandering eye when it came to religion wasn't a formal process, and that if he were to truly convert to Christianity, which he was considering in 1913, he must first embrace his Judaism. He had to convert to Christianity as a Jew, which might sound strange to you, but has a deep integrity to it. In order for him to make a change, he had to stand firmly within himself. And isn't that an important lesson for us? As we grow, as we learn, as we explore, isn't it important to know how rooted we are? To touch base with our own history, to hold our own hearts, to know where we've come from. It's an important part of moving forward, knowing who we are and where we've come from. And so he said if I were going to convert to Christianity, I needed to do so as a Jew. So what did he do? He went to shul one last time, he thought. One last time. And it was Yom Kippur. And we don't truly know what happened, but he spoke about it here and there. And historians and philosophers know the story, that whatever happened to him, this mystical experience, it transformed him. Yom Kippur 1913. And he broke down crying. And he in his own words, truly became a Jew. And that transformed the arc of his life and so much of Jewish history and learning since. Now, I thought about this as I was leaving Grand Central Station, walking to UJA, noticing the people around me. I got coffee from one of those little pop-up coffee stores, the trailers that you can find all over Manhattan, wondering how many people are buying coffee from these stores now, and how the people who have to invest in these pop-up shops have to bring something home. So I wasn't getting coffee from the coffee guy. I actually almost broke down in tears just looking at his face. And for a moment, I just wanted to talk to him. There was a line behind me, thank God for his business, but I wanted to be with him, to learn about him. Rosenzweig believed that what happened at Sinai was not content, it was the encounter. And his belief in this mystical approach to God and the universe led him to say that relationship commands. So wherever you are, friends, if you're in front of a screen, first of all, our relationship is very compelling to me. We created it in the most dire of circumstances, out of necessity, and without knowing what the future was going to hold, nor how long we would be holding each other 644 broadcasts later. But this is compelling. This is commanding. This is an encounter. And when we are blessed to physically be side by side, panim el panim, face to face with another human being, be they someone in shul, be they the person who you're selling coffee to or that you're getting coffee from, or the person in the elevator as you come up to your office to do your broadcast, or the next person I'll see on the street who has no money with which to buy coffee. Relationship commands. It compels. And I tried to do just 3 seconds of research before I was going to broadcast, because my Rosenzweig library is okay. I have some books, but I haven't picked up his books in a long time. And so I know that I have in this book on Jewish learning by Franz Rosenzweig, which was edited by a student, Nachum Glatzer, the appendix has letters that Rosenzweig wrote with his friend Martin Buber. They're very interesting people. They're very interesting people. And so in 1922, they're writing letters back and forth. And I'm not going to read you all of them, obviously, but here's a little bit, and stick with me. The language is philosophers speaking to each other, but stick with me. September 28th, 1922, Martin Buber writes to Franz Rosenzweig, "Dear Dr. Rosenzweig, how could you assume that I treat you with expressive silence, a means of communication which, incidentally, I'm neither willing nor able to employ? I'm sure you realized, after the first half hour of your visit to my home at Heppenheim, that I talked to you in a way I wished I could talk to all human beings. A messianic wish indeed. In that world, people take things in good grace, and if they refrain from talking, they do so either because they wish to be silent or because they cannot talk. The reason for my not answering your letter of last Friday is that at this stage of our talk, I might have been able to go on talking, but I was unable to write. The problem could no longer be discussed objectively. The question had become a personal one. I would have had to tell you about the internal and even external history of my own youth, for instance, how once, on a day of atonement, Yom Kippur, I caused annoyance in a liberal synagogue by following the tradition of bending my knee and prostrating myself while reciting the words Va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim. We bend our knee. That was from Martin Buber. But I must tell you, he continues, and the next letter is Erev Yom Kippur, 1922, just a few days later. But I must still tell you something serious, that in spite of everything, I feel in my innermost heart that today is Erev Yom Kippur. I feel it. This may be so because between my 13th and 14th year, when I stopped putting on tefillin, I experienced this day with a force unequaled by any other experience since. And do you think that I was a child at that time? Maybe less so than now. And this in a poignant sense. At that time I took space and time seriously. I did not hold back as I do now. And then, when the sleepless night was heavy upon me, and my very real, my body, already reacting to the fast, became as important to me as an animal marked for sacrifice. This is what formed me, the night, and the following morning, and Yom Kippur itself, with all its hours, not omitting a single moment. So you see, I had not originally been exposed to liberal influences in my religious education. May you be sealed for a good life. Yours, Martin Buber. Friends, I looked for Martin Buber by accident. I thought I was looking for Franz Rosenzweig, but I looked for Franz Rosenzweig because of somebody who sold me coffee. And I looked at the person who sold me coffee because of the people on the train, and because I said good morning to my wife, I saw the people on the train, and because of that, I saw the person who sold me coffee. And then I saw Franz Rosenzweig, and then Martin Buber, and then you. Who's next? Who's next, friends? Who can we say hello to next? When we were children, at least Buber says, we held back less. We took space and time seriously. And sometimes we bowed, because we knew that the world was bigger than us. When we're a child, everything is bigger than us. So today, let us be what in my shul we call joy, just older youth. Let's be children again. Or let's acknowledge that we've been children the whole time. And say hello to the next person with eyes full of wonder. Who is this human being? If that person has something to offer, like coffee, great. If not, maybe you can offer something. Maybe you can pause if you have nothing to offer. And if you're offered nothing, maybe really Rosenzweig had it right when he walked into Yom Kippur with the express purpose of coming to terms with himself so that he could become something new. He realized he was who he was, and that was overwhelmingly majestic. Maybe the whole point of Yom Kippur is to just be what we are. Bodies side by side, souls yearning for connection, for forgiveness, for love. Maybe instead of this, clapping ourselves on the heart, we can do this. Hold our own hearts. Do some self-examination. Commit to being warmer and kinder and more forgiving to yourself and to each other. We do that right, then the world will absolutely have a better next year than it did this past one. So friends, a lot of blessing to you. Can't wait to see you tomorrow as we get ready for Yom Kippur together. Ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ay la la la. See you soon. See you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.